So, Danto has this definition of art in which he says that to be an artwork, some part or property of it has to be picked out by a sentence that uses this is of artistic identification. So that's what allows us to distinguish, say, Klaus Oldenburg's bed from just some random bed here. This bed is a bed in just the ordinary sense of the is of predication. This thing has the property of being a bed, but Klaus Oldenburg's bed is a bed in the sense of artistic identification. Not only is it a bed as in the sense of predication, but it is a bed. We have identified it using the is of identification. And this also allows us to distinguish between, say, the urinal on the left here and the urinal on the right. The one on the left was a urinal that the artist Marcel Duchamp took out and put it in an art gallery. It's an artwork with the title Fountain. The one on the right is, well, a photo of a random urinal someplace in a bathroom. Now, the one on the left seems to be an artwork. The one on the right, definitely not an artwork. Well, we can explain why this is the case by saying, look, I can use the is of artistic identification to say that fountain on the left is a urinal, whereas this rando urinal over on the right, well, it's a urinal in the sense of the is of predication, but I can't use the is of artistic identification to talk about it. Now, the question is, well, why is it that I can use the is of artistic identification to talk about fountain on the left, but not to talk about the urinal on the right? And here what Danto says is, well, look, there's this thing called the art world, this atmosphere of theory and artistic practice. And we'll see Dickey in his article next kind of expand on this idea of the art world as this whole extensive network of artists and museum curators and art critics, all of these people who are involved in these institutions like museums and artist studios and academic departments that create these institutions having to do with art, in which they have this whole atmosphere of theory about what makes art or not. And it's this practice of using theory that makes it the case that the is of artistic identification applies to fountain on the left, but the is of artistic identification does not apply to the urinal on the right. So in this sense, Danto's definition of art is an institutional definition, because ultimately it claims that there's nothing particular about the urinal itself here that makes it a work of art. Rather, it's that urinal's relationship to these institutions, the art world of museums and art critics and artists who collectively decide to what objects the is of artistic identification applies to. So whether something is art or not depends on whether the art world is related to it in such a way that it's appropriate to use the is of artistic identification with it. Now, what we're going to see is Dickey run with this idea in his article next and really draw out the idea that artworks are constituted as artworks because of the relationships that they share to the institutions of the art world, artists, critics, academics, aestheticians, etc.